just because a VA has what looks like an impressive resume, it doesn't mean that they're good at all those things. VAs tend to have a knack of listing a lot of different things. Look at that as a generalist. Usually, again, this is just not a generalized statement. The fewer things that the VA puts down usually means they're probably going to be better off at those things. When a VA lists 20 things, they're probably a generalist in all 20.
We have so many people I run into who are like, oh, well, I hired a VA for that or whatever, but it's strategy. Like they haven't figured out how to do it themselves. They don't know how to do something. They have no concept of what they should be doing. And they think that they can hire a VA who can make those strategic decisions and guide the business.
You can't outsource overwhelming confusion and hope the VA is going to sort it out for you, right? So that's something that we don't want to be outsourcing. We don't want to take our lack of attention to detail, our lack of kind of our distractions, ADD, and then attempt to bring a VA and be our therapist. We have to at least be organized enough to delegate the work efficiently. I guess I mentioned attention to detail. I judge a lot by the visual appearance, that if they can't be bothered to present themselves, that might be indicative of how they might show up for work. So it's the little details. It's not what they say. Every VA has a story, right? I'm supporting my family. I'm supporting my mom, my dad, my kids, my brothers, sisters. They all have that, right? So don't fall for the sob story.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Welcome. Today we have with us Beejel. Beejel, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and let them know what you're all about.
Sure. Thank you. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the podcast here. So my name is Beejel. I'm from the UK. I live in Las Vegas currently. And I've been in the outsourcing industry since 2009. I kind of got into it after almost a decade, but about several years of struggles as a solopreneur, entrepreneur. I finally picked up this book, The 4-Hour Workweek. And that was the book that basically introduced me to the world of outsourcing, hiring overseas team members at a fairly reasonable rate. And the reason that's so relevant is because I realized when reading that book that the reason I was struggling so much as an entrepreneur is I'd start a venture or I'd, buy into something. And, at first it was exciting, but when it got down to the busy work, I was basically resisting doing the day-to-day work that really drives profit in business. That was my wake-up call. Became so passionate about it, I basically started a small company with 3 VAs. That led to working with a larger company for 10 years. I grew that from 100 to 500 VAs. And in 2019, I started my most recent company called Be Epic Outsourcing, a very unique and different model. But that's basically my journey. And in the middle of that, myself, my family had to leave the US. We were trying to stay because of immigration. We didn't want to break any rules. So we left the country, we sold everything. So I really cut my teeth, basically living a laptop lifestyle for 5 years, traveling with the kids, homeschooling, but yet growing a business at the same time, all thanks to hiring a team of VAs.
I love that. So, not that you had immigration issues, but the entire story and being able to build a true laptop lifestyle. And I think one thing that I didn't realize how much that I would come to love is the people that I can support through my business. So my team, my VAs, everything, like I feel very blessed that I can support their families through our work and what we do. So I think this is very, very cool. And I love this conversation for our audience in particular, because so many are stuck in some of the busy work of their business, and it's taking them away from the highest level income producing activities that they should be doing. And so I wanted to really have this conversation. Number one, I love your model and what you do in your company. And number two, to really dive deep into like, when should you outsource? What should you outsource? What are, the pitfalls that you should avoid? All of that good stuff. So that's what we're really going to dive in today. But just to get us started, when should someone start thinking about outsourcing?
I think it's a great question. And for me, if I could go back in time, the moment I start to think about setting up a business or an income stream, the very next question is, what's my role going to be in this, and what can I delegate? If we don't start with that idea right up front, we're going to be either bogged down by that busy work, we're going to come to dislike what we've just started, or we're going to start resisting doing the day-to-day busy work that will actually drive that business. So to answer your question, hiring a VA is not relevant if you're still trying to figure out what's your business. But the moment you've decided that, hey, I'm going to be doing X, regardless of what X is, because there's no industry I've come across that can't benefit from having a team member, okay? That's the time. And here's why. Because you want to start off with building that budget in. And it doesn't have to be a lot, Leah. One of the things we teach I call it the $5 per day VA. People say, well, how is it possible to hire a person for $5 a day? Well, it's not. It's $5 per hour is mostly the starting point for a lot of VAs in the Philippines. What I mean by that is, what are the 1 or 2 or maybe 3 tasks maximum that if somebody came into our office and did that for us, it would create consistency, it would improve one aspect of what we do. I'll give you an example. I attend a lot of networking events, mastermind events. Usually there's some sort of follow-up action. Maybe you've met a lot of people. That's how we met. But if the VA doesn't keep me on track or doesn't help me with that, all those connections will probably kind of fall through the cracks. I'm sure everyone's heard the saying that the fortune is in the follow-up. Entrepreneurs kind of tend to suck at follow-up, right? So maybe like even just 1 hour per day coming in and helping with that one aspect of a business could change your revenue structure completely.
That's powerful. So yeah, I think it's not as expensive as people think. Like, it's not like you're hiring someone in the US who's, at $15 or $25 an hour or something like that. And that's a huge expense that you're going to have to deal with. Tell us just a little bit for context for people who haven't really researched this themselves yet, because they don't feel like they can afford it or they don't know that they're ready for it. What's the standard model? And then what do you guys do?
Yeah. Okay. So before I answer that question, I want to create a distinction between what I call project outsourcing and process outsourcing. And what I mean by that is most entrepreneurs, and myself included, and if I look back, makes me kind of want to throw up, right? How much money we will spend on a project. Now, what I mean by that is a website, a business card, a logo, maybe a book, right? Maybe a funnel design or whatever. Now, projects are great. They're kind of exciting. You have a start point, end point, and they get done. But projects cost you money, cost you time. I call it the terms of your ROI. Terms is basically time, effort, resources, money, and sanity. We are far more likely to invest in a project, right, of some nature. However, we're not, and when I say we, I'm talking about entrepreneurs in general, are not as good at delegating the processes that drive the business. Why? Because most entrepreneurs don't think and act in terms of processes. We're very reactive to our day. Or for the ones who are, they don't really like running processes. What I mean by process is something that needs to be done day to day, week to week, month to month. It's a repetitive thing that happens in our business that generates some form of result, right? And specifically, revenue generating processes. Okay, so now we put these outsourcing in 2 buckets. So what are the options? We can go to an agency, and agencies typically have a 2 to 5 times markup, sometimes even more. And some pros that when you're working through an agency, there should be some form of management oversight, a better hiring process. It's not always the case. Sometimes agencies basically hire willy-nilly. But really the concern is how much they're paying the VAs. Most agencies squeeze the VAs pays down. If the agency is a physical location, the VAs are having to travel often at nighttime. They'll leave home at 9, 10, 11 p.m., go to the agency building, work all night, come home, often missing out on their kids' lives. And if it's the monsoon season or the weather's not the best, they're facing all of that. Okay, so that's the agency model. Then and also the fact that you're paying $10, $12, $14 per hour sometimes for a VA that's paying getting paid $2 or $3 per hour. So a huge markup. Nothing wrong with markup. Everybody needs to cover costs and expenses, but a little bit unfair when the VA is getting squeezed down to just kind of the bare minimum of survivability. Then a lot of VAs quit that. So that's the other issues. Because they're getting paid so little, at some point they all start to leave that model and try and get their own clients hiring direct. Now the direct hire model is great. You save some money. But again, the recruiting process can be overwhelming. Finding the right VA can be kind of a needle in the haystack type of thing. And you might have to go through a lot of different VAs to find the right one. Again, but if you have the time and patience and the skill, not a bad option. So what we did, I looked at this, having been in the industry for now almost kind of 14 and a half years, and say, great, what could be a hybrid model that provides the benefits of an agency, providing support to both the clients and to the VAs, but also the low-cost benefit of hiring direct. And that's the kind of hybrid model that we kind of pioneered. I think we're unique in the industry of how we do it. Our clients actually pay the VAs directly, so they still keep that one-to-one relationship, but we provide all the support that both parties need. In fact, we often say we have two sets of clients, the paying client and the serving client. And our job is to make sure both are happy. We provide ongoing training for the VAs. Something else we do that's unique is that we basically build our VA community around a city. So our first VA community is in Davao. We're starting to build Cebu, and maybe later this year, I'm planning on starting one in South America as well. What that means is we call it the Hive. Okay, so obviously we have a B theme. And the Hive is basically self-supporting. Like last weekend, they had a training event. Some of the senior VAs, more experienced VAs, were training they're training the VAs on Go High Level, client management, social media. So the VAs with more experience train the other VAs. And this creates a better culture, creates kind of a collaborative aspect to it. And also when VAs get stuck, they come to other VAs and say, hey, how do I do this? And it's a really supportive culture that we've created. So that's kind of the key differences between what we do and how the industry functions.
Yeah. And that's why we're actually getting started checking out your services, because I think I like the fact to be able to really help VAs more directly, get them a better situation, but still have some help as a business owner, making sure I have the right people and all of the benefits of the agency. So I like it clearly because we're getting started with it, but I feel like there's so many opportunities of tasks to hand over to a VA that a lot of solopreneurs don't even recognize as something that someone else could handle. Can you go through like some of the common things or things that people might not really recognize as something that would, take a big load off of them and allow them to do other more productive things in their business?
It's almost easy to answer that by saying what VAs can't do. Okay. I have there are literally hundreds of tasks, Leah, that the VAs can do, right? And remember, a VA doesn't have to be at $5 per hour. I use it because it's what, say, a lot of generalist VAs will start out at least that's what we recommend to clients, because that's a good, and this number 5 has come from the VAs themselves. They calculate what is a good hourly rate based on, their situation and stuff. Some VAs might be charging more experienced VAs might be 8, 9, 10. We have a data analyst. I think she's either $12 or $14 per hour, but her equivalent is probably $60 to $80 per hour in the US, right? Super smart, right. Really good at processes and consolidating multiple spreadsheets into one, and then et cetera, right? So there's no what VAs cannot do. Other than this, as business owners, the critical thinking still needs to come from us. The strategic decision-making comes from us, right? The management comes from us. Now, I have VAs that manage VAs. That's even possible as well. But really, like my largest client has 14 VAs. The VAs are in customer success, customer support. They're in the coaching team. They're in the marketing team. So they're across the board, literally in every division of the company, right? So to me, there's very little they can't do when it comes to task level activity. Now, you are dealing with somebody overseas. There is a cultural difference, and they're not going to be the same as somebody who's maybe the same position as in the US. But you're also not paying that price, right? So for a lot of entrepreneurs like me, I'm really still even though it's really me and my wife that run the business, right? We have VAs, and the VAs help run the company, but we're a micropreneur company. We have 140 odd VAs active right now, but they're working directly with clients. So, we are still a small business, or micro business, really, to be honest with you. And we have the same issues and deal with the same things that a lot of clients deal with. So we understand the challenges that entrepreneurs, solopreneurs are going through when it comes to hiring VAs. Something else we do is alongside hey, here's a VA, is I basically run live calls every week. And I basically jump online, and any of the clients who want that as an option can jump on, and we talk about prioritization. What should the client be doing to basically get the best bang for the buck for their business? And what are some of the tasks that they should be delegating? So we really help clients navigate the distinction between the best use of their time and how to integrate remote team members strategically to really create the best result for the business.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And as a coach, a business coach, we have so many people I run into who are like, oh, well, I hired a VA for that or whatever, but it's strategy. Like, they haven't figured out how to do it themselves. They don't know how to do something. They have no concept of what they should be doing. And they think that they can hire a VA who can make those strategic decisions and guide the business.
You can't outsource overwhelming confusion and hope the VA is going to sort it out for you, right? So that's something that we don't want to be outsourcing. We don't want to take our lack of attention to detail, our lack of kind of our distractions, ADD, and then attempt to bring a VA and be our therapist. We have to at least be organized enough to delegate the work efficiently. And one of the key magic keys here is what I call SOPs, okay, or processes. This will solve so many issues, because an SOP technically means that if someone follows the steps of the SOP, the result will be created at the end of that, right? So when you give a VA an SOP and the SOP works, right? So standard operating procedures. If you know it works, and say you hire a VA and they follow the SOP and it's not the same result, either something wrong with the SOP or the VA is lacking attention to detail, right? So that's kind of your control mechanism. Now, here's the thing. Most entrepreneurs are not very good at writing SOPs. So what I tend to tell people is do your best, and telling the client is have a best shot at creating an SOP. Give it to your VA, get her off kind of a Zoom call, show them how you do it, and let them help you build the SOP, right? A lot of VAs are integral in setting up SOPs for the clients, even building what I call a SOP playbook, or a playbook of how things happen, how things function, because that VA might leave. At some point, they might get pregnant, they might leave the country, they might get a job somewhere else. So, don't assume that because you hired a great VA, they're going to be with you for life, right? But as long as you and they have developed an SOP playbook, in theory, when they leave, bring in another VA, give them the SOP, and they should be able to pick up pretty much where they left off.
Yes. Okay. So I think that's really important. Knowing, even if you haven't documented it yet, knowing your SOP, knowing what should be happening. If you don't have that, then it's time to get a coach or get a strategist or a consult or somebody at that level to help you figure out what you should be doing, learn your processes, make sure it's working for you, and then hand off to a VA exactly what needs to happen. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see when people are looking for VAs or hiring VAs?
Oftentimes, and this is very, very common in hiring direct, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they put a post out, some job board or whatever, or they maybe in some Facebook groups where a lot of VAs are kind of hanging out. And the first VA that basically applies, that they interview the VA, first of all, they're not really following kind of interview protocol or procedures. It's kind of more of a conversation. So tell me what you do. And the VA, not every VA is going to be honest, right? So that's something to be just warned of. Just because a VA has what looks like an impressive resume, it doesn't mean that they're good at all those things. VAs tend to have a knack of listing a lot of different things. Look at that as a generalist. Usually, again, this is just not, a generalized statement. The fewer things that the VA puts down usually means they're probably going to be better off at those things. When a VA lists 20 things, they're probably a generalist in all 20, which is good. If you need a generalist or kind of need an EA who knows how to navigate a lot of different things, not a bad option, right? Number two, when I create a job description, I'll often put in what I call a secret word, and I'll embed it kind of towards the latter end of the job description, which is, hey, if we end up in an interview, make sure you know what the secret password is. And I'll put in, let's say it's yellow, okay? And then when I interview the person, I'll say, hey, did you read the job description? They're going to probably say yes. So great, what's the secret password? If they can't answer that, it means they didn't really read the job description. They just kind of skim through it. They're not paying. So attention to detail is one of my parameters, right? Integrity, honesty is another one. Like if I catch a VA lying, that's kind of a ground for dismissal. So I developed what I call FLAG. So F stands for falsifying information. L stands for lying. A stands for attendance. And G stands for gross negligence. So if a VA violates any of those four, I give them a yellow flag. So, hey, we're human. I understand mistakes are made, but this is a yellow flag warning. If it happens again, it's a red flag warning, which is next time there's no conversation, I got to let you go. By establishing the ground rules from the very beginning of what's acceptable, what's not, you and the VA also understands you, know that, hey, as much as friendly as we're going to become, we're going to treat each other well with respect. There is a system in place that will lead to a dismissal if you, the VA, don't or violate these terms. Now, that's my system called FLAG. You can create your own. But the key thing here is that you have a system that is not emotional, and is not based on the stories. It is a system that it's an SOP, right? That the business uses to retain or let go of people. So FLAG is my system.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So take a coach or a course creator, okay? That's a lot of our audience here. What are some of the first tasks as a solopreneur who's selling courses, selling coaching? What are the kind of the first things to typically take off their plate and hand?
I would say that the social media. If you're doing courses, workshops, everything. Again, you need to be out there, right? So while you're writing your book, or while you're creating your course, be dropping, social media content that leads people back to a opt-in page of some sort. At least start building the list, start building the reputation of what you do, right? So that's just an example of one. And if you already have clientele, client management is another one. Making sure that you're not wasting time on emails or support tickets that your customers need. So it depends on the stage. But if you're starting off brand new, then the moment you start thinking about, hey, I need to write a book, before you put pen to paper, start building your list. You can start building your list and following by getting active on social media. What most people do, they'll spend several months working on the book. They'll spend several months on their course, sometimes years, right? And they don't do this. Again, what I was talking about. Processes versus projects, right? So what you just mentioned are classic examples of projects. We can put so much time, effort, resources, money, sanity into those projects. And whether it takes 3 months, 6 months, a year, or whatever, what are the processes that are happening in the background that could potentially drive the results in the business, right? So that's just kind of one example. For me, anything I don't like doing, anything that drains me mentally, anything I don't like doing, at this current moment in time, is something I want to get off my plate, right? I don't want to spend 8 hours of my day doing stuff that doesn't bring me joy, right? So that's just kind of some very basic starting points there.
Yeah, and I know a lot of our clients, social media is one of the first things that they want to get help with, because it can be overwhelming. And there's so many other things that they need to work on in the foundation of their business stage that it's nice to get some help with that for sure. So absolutely. I think that's great. So what are some of the characteristics of a good VA? So if someone is going through the hiring process or looking for someone who's going to be phenomenal, what are some of those characteristics they should be seeking?
Yeah, if you're hiring cold for the very first time, for me, I want someone in team that I enjoy having conversation, right? Because for me, one of my advice to my clients is be willing to meet with your VA every day, even if it's a 5-minute, 10-minute check-in. All right, and this is not just for VA. This is coming from the suggestions from running a business. Regular team meetings. So this team member has to integrate into team, especially if they're going to be ongoing team members. If it's a project, it doesn't matter so much, right? You're just going to give the work to them. They're going to finish it and give it back to you. But when it comes to an integral team member, personality is kind of key. If you're familiar with DISC, right, the DISC personality profile, if you're one type, find a VA, have them do a DISC test, and have them complementary to you, right? So not the same as you, but complementary, so that you bring in that other skill set, that personality, to create a holistic, all-rounded personality profile. I guess I mentioned attention to detail. I judge a lot by the visual appearance. That if they can't be bothered to present themselves, then that might be indicative of how they might show up for work. So it's the little details. It's not what they say. Every VA has a story, right? I'm supporting my family. I'm supporting my mom, my dad, my kids, my brothers, sisters. They all have that, right? So don't fall for the sob story, right? Of course, as you get to know them and work with them, give them bonuses, right? If they do something special, if they go out of their way, give them a bonus. But don't make it, you want to be careful not to get too comfortable. That fine line between being friendly and establishing that you are still the owner of the business and that they're serving the business.
I think that's really important. And I think that's hard when we're in these micro businesses, as you talk about, where, because it's you and them, or maybe 3 people on the team, and you're working together all the time, and you build those relationships. And it's important to keep those boundaries, to be friendly but professional still, because I know there may come a time where you have to have some difficult conversations. It's going to happen at one point or another, right? And you have to be able to do that. And there's the old saying, slow to hire, quick to fire. And I think that's part of the problem and why people take too long to fire when things aren't going well, when there is deception, when there is something happening, because they've built that rapport a little too friendly, right? And they've built they don't have that posture of the employer as well. So
really important to establish that fine line, right? And look, I'm one of those people who are horrible at firing people, right? Like once I get to know someone, I really don't want to let people go. But if they can't perform the job, I say, look, hey, it's nothing personal. I just need somebody who can do this job the way the business needs. So remember, they're serving the business, right? So oftentimes we confuse ourselves with the business. I understand if you're a solopreneur, it's almost like kind of a blur. But think about your business as an entity, and this goes for us too, right? We have to ask ourselves, if the business is evaluating us as CEOs, founders, how would the business rate us, right? Because here's the thing: sometimes you're going to hire a VA, and one of the things we do with a lot is expectations. They hire a $5 per hour VA, $6 per hour VA, but yeah, when they send the job description through, it's almost like they're hiring a kind of a Harvard graduate, right? Expert. They use the words like expert, rock star, very good English, right? Remember, you're hiring somebody. There is a trade-off between hiring somebody locally and hiring somebody overseas, and so we have to establish the right expectations of what that can come with. It can come with sometimes power going out. It can come with, look, VAs work. Most of my VAs work through the night. They wake up at 7 p.m. They have their dinner, and then they go to start working around 9 p.m., 11 p.m., depending on the clients. They're working through the night. Is it possible that sometimes they're going to miss their alarm and they're going to sleep through the night? It happens, but that's the trade-off, right? So before we judge and just get upset, so, oh my God, my VA didn't show up. It's like, yeah, but give them a little bit of grace. If it becomes a habit, of course, I understand. but give them grace for some of the things that, for the trade-off, because they're putting in a lot of time, dedication. They're willing to work through the night in many cases for their clients. So we have to bear all of that in mind when we decide that we are on a budget. I can't hire a full-time person or somebody in the US, but this is my only option, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as someone, a former nurse on the floor in the hospital who worked night shift in the children's hospital, like it takes a lot to be on that kind of schedule and to make that kind of sacrifice. So that's awesome. That's awesome of them, and something that we should appreciate with our people as they're making that sacrifice. So I think that's great. What would be one piece of advice, like the number one thing you want to really hone in for folks on all things, VA?
Wow, number one thing.
Those are always the hardest questions.
I know. It's don't delay the decision to delegate, right? Even if it's 1 hour per day, even if you're think it's a tight budget, start, because it's like building a muscle, right? Once you start and you realize how much time you can start to win back and put that time into better use, it's surprising what change can happen in your business. We will spend money willingly on buying courses and 997 courses, and where we resist hiring people that can actually implement some of the things that we've invested in, like this, audit your software programs, the ones that you bought paying membership for and can't remember the login. Think if you hired somebody and their job was to use that software for you, could it make a difference, right? So don't delay starting a delegation.
Yeah, it's such an easy trap to fall into, and I think it's really important to take the time, do sort of an audit of your day, figure out everything that you're doing during the day, and then really have that hard conversation of, do I need to do it, or does it just need to get done?
Yeah, and also, Leah, it's what you're resisting. So, as you said, take audit day, but my suggestion is audit yourself for about 1 to 2 weeks. Really do this diligently. It is business transforming, and thus life transforming. Okay, audit yourself. Be ruthless in documenting what you do, but also reflect back on, at the end of the day, reflect on what you did not do, right?
Right.
And ask the question, why? Why are you resisting doing certain things, right? And literally doing that, you will come to the conclusion that you have no choice but to delegate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love this. Thank you so much for this conversation. It has been so helpful. I think it's reiterating everything that I need to hear, and I'm sure for so many people that are out there. So if people want to get a hold of you, learn more, where should they head?
Okay, I made it really easy. Yeah, B Epic Outsourcing. But let me tell you, so the B is symbolic of productivity. It's an ancient symbol of productivity. As we all know, bees are miraculous in terms of what they do each day. But I always like to say that bees serve their unique purpose. They serve the hive, and they serve humanity. So we entrepreneurs need to be serving our unique purpose, our community, and ultimately humanity. EPIC stands for being efficient, productive, intentional, and completion. That's kind of where the name came from.
I love that. And we'll have the links to that in the description and show notes as well. And there's a freebie, correct?
Yep. If you go to our website, the same website, there is a guide. There's 6 questions that will help you prioritize what to delegate for your current given situation.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Beejel. This has been an awesome conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, if you found this helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and to share with somebody who could benefit. Have a blessed day. You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.